I really appreciate you coming on. My guest is Mark Nash. He is a actor. I guess you would identify as an actor.
Yes,
Would
first
be your
and
first
foremost,
thing.
yes.
Actor, comedian, but a car guy also.
Definitely a car guy, absolutely. And thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, it's fun to talk. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about you've had such an interesting life. A lot of the stuff that I find intriguing, you've done a lot of this stuff, and probably to the next level that I've ever done it. So it's kind of cool to talk about it. So I thought we'd just start by maybe talking about where you were born, how
Sure.
you got into maybe music and.
Well, it all started with music. I'm the son of a drummer, a gospel drummer, and was from the rural Appalachia in Virginia. And where I'm from, there's not a lot of exposure to the arts and theater and things like that, but a lot of music. So for the first 20 years of my life was mostly music. But then, in my early 20s, I moved to Florida, got married, and got randomly at one point, we checked out a local show at a local theater in St. Petersburg, Florida. And it was a show called Lend Me a Tenor, which happens to be a musical. I'd never been to a show like this, never been to a musical in my life. And so I kind of got a late start in life. But with a musical background, I had a deeper appreciation for the theater. When the show was over, I was actually very excited. I wanted to be a part of that. So as I'm leaving that show that night, I asked a fellow that worked there, hey, how do I get involved in that? I want to do that. I'm a musician, but I want to do more. So he gives me a name. He gives me a name, Sheila Wessner, who was my acting coach for years. For the next 4 or 5 years, she was my mentor. So I did on-camera classes and auditioning classes and so on and so on. Anyway, during that class, I was able to meet a lot of interesting people throughout Florida, some working actors and things. She introduced me to a few people that made a difference in my life. Some stunt people, some casting directors, and things like that. So I started going out on some auditions from word of mouth for commercial auditions.
Yeah, and this is what year?
Yeah, we're talking 95, 6, somewhere through there, mid-90s. And I didn't know. I was very green, just learning this business. So I went on some auditions, and lo and behold, I was landing a couple auditions here and there. Now, granted, don't get too excited. These are low-budget commercials, local commercials. I did, if you remember Montgomery Ward's back in the day, commercials like that. That company no longer exists. So I did some local commercials, and I was starting to gain some traction and building a resume. Hey, I may be pretty good at this. So I was approached one day by a fella, and he says, hey, Mark, you ever done anything on camera? No, how does that work? Hey, why don't you come out? We're shooting this little horror flick. It doesn't pay anything, but you can figure out, learn how this works, and we'll have a lot of fun. So I spent that following weekend shooting a horror flick in Brandon, Florida, in the middle of nowhere. Fell in love with the camera. So now I want to take this a few steps further. So I, at that point, was head over heels in the acting stuff. So I took stunt classes, stunt driving classes, took an improv class. I just wanted to learn as much as I could.
What did they do at improv class? Are they just like... is it just the art of just free flowing?
There's a formula to improv, and we could do a whole segment on just improv. There's a whole formula, the four square and improv and so on. Improv it requires the art of listening and paying attention. Your next move is not premeditated. It's a reaction. So improv can be so much fun. It's the hardest thing to open your mind to improv and let yourself go. And for the longest time, I was embarrassed. I'm trying to be this cool guy. I can't let go. But when you do, it's life-changing. And I was able to learn to do that. I was approached by a talent agent one time. I sat on the board, back up a little bit. I was a member of the FMPTA, which stands for the Motion Picture and Television Association for Florida, the Florida Motion Pictures. So I was approached by a talent agent one time, and I said, hey, Would you be interested in having representation? I can send you on real auditions for real commercials.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And it pays. Hey.
What's that?
So I go on some auditions, and of course I failed many times. Made many trips to Orlando from Tampa, which was about a 90-mile drive. Many trips. But then I started booking some simple auditions and commercials. And before you knew it, I was working on set, making some money. Hey, I can have fun and make money too. This is kind of cool.
This is great.
So I did this for probably the next 6 years. And I built a crazy resume. I probably, to this date, I've probably done 75 commercials. I've been in 40 movies. I've done daytime drama. I've done a bunch of stuff over the years. So I built this crazy resume up until 2003, 2004. Well, during this time, I got a divorce. Life had changed, and I got tired of Florida.
Yeah.
So hey, why not move to Hollywood? And I did.
Yeah.
I moved to Burbank, California. The mecca from filmmaking. So I moved to California. Lived out there for a little over a couple years, and I became a working actor, and I was fortunate. I got on some sets. I met interesting people. I've met Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
I was on set with Anthony Hopkins. I've met some interesting people, and it was a very life-changing experience. But at the time, I was with another girl, and some life events caused me to relocate from California to Indiana.
Yeah.
So now you got Virginia to Florida to California to Indiana. So I go to Indiana, and for about the next 6 months, I was on a culture shock hiatus. I didn't know where I'd even moved to and where I was living.
What did I do?
What have I done? You're right, Steve, what have I done? But lo and behold, I was a short jump from Chicago. So I got into the local acting scene in Indianapolis. Then I ventured on to the local acting scene in Chicago.
So how far is that, Chicago to you?
170 miles.
Oh,
so 2.5 hours to 3 hour drive, and I've made that trip many times.
Yeah.
I was able to land an agent in Chicago, and I landed an agent called Big Mouth Talent. And Big Mouth Talent actually changed my life because it was in Chicago that I was able to become SAG eligible. I became a member of the Screen Actors Guild. And when you do that, it took me to a different level in the profession. And I never looked back. How I got my SAG card was I worked.
What's a SAG card?
SAG card, Screen Actors Guild. You get your SAG card. And so I got my SAG card, and it's funny how I got my card, how I became eligible to join the union. I worked on a Southwest airline commercial, and I was there about 4 hours at Midway Airport in Chicago. And it's funny because I had auditioned, done the callback, did the wardrobe fitting, and made the trip back to Chicago. 4 trips to Chicago. I'm on the set of this commercial. Halfway through the day, 2 hours into the set, one of the fellows on set goes, "Man, I guess you're excited to be on this set." Yeah, I'm making pretty good money. He goes, "This is a SAG set. You're now a member of the Screen Actors Guild by being on this commercial."
You're like, what?
It was funny because I was still to the point where I didn't realize that this was a union commercial. So that just catapulted me into union status, which now I am able to audition for whatever and get paid union scale day rates. So time went on. The next several years, I actually booked several commercials, and they pay nice.
And it's through the union too.
Through the union,
so you got some extra gigs through
absolutely
working to them.
So when you're a member of SAG, a member of the union, it opens other doors, and it's opened a few doors for me. Fast forward now, I live in Georgia, and the reason why I live in Georgia is probably the second largest film market in America.
Yeah, that blows me away.
Well, because of the tax incentives. Georgia has a huge tax incentive, and back several years ago, 5-6 years ago, California lost their tax incentives. So all these companies jumped ship out of California, and they all moved to Georgia because of the tax incentive. Now that California has their tax incentives back, people are staying in Georgia. Why? Because the cost of living is cheaper here. So I moved to Georgia, and hopefully I've got an agent here in Georgia, and due to COVID and the whole Corona thing, everything's kind of been put on hold, but things are starting to open back up. as you know, you just helped me with an audition tonight.
Yeah, that was cool. So I like doing it just to kind of see how it works. And
so that's kind of a career, a 25-year span in a nutshell. There's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of bumps in the road, but I've had a very interesting journey.
Yeah.
And there's, if you're seeking to be an actor, to be a working actor, just expect a lot of bumps in the road.
Yeah.
A lot of setbacks.
It's got to be. I mean, when you say that the competition is huge in Hollywood, or is it
every audition, every commercial audition or film audition that I read for, there could be up to 3,500 people reading for the same role with the same idea, the same look.
Yeah.
So yes, the competition is very stiff, and in this day and time, a lot of auditions are done at home. So at a home studio, I have a home studio at my house. Camera and stuff. I can do an audition on a whim, but it has to be top notch because I'm going up against other people in the industry that that do that all the time. I have a day job, so I'm not able to practice my craft day in, day out, day in, day out. I have a day job, so I get an audition. It's either do it early in the morning or do it later in the evening, and I book a gig. It's taking time off from my day job to do the job.
Yeah.
So to be an actor, it's not all glitz and glam like the magazines and the television makes it out to be. There's a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
And do actors make a lot of money? Sure they can. But what people don't take into consideration, all the time involved.
Yeah.
All the multiple trips I made to Orlando, the multiple trips I made to Chicago. It's a 3-hour drive each way to Chicago. Wardrobe.
Yeah.
You go for the audition. You go for the callback. I am a Second City Chicago alumni. I went and took the full course in Chicago. I had to pay for my own housing in Chicago.
Yeah.
Take time off from work, a leave of absence, pay for my food, lodging, transportation. Huge investment for me. So, yes, do I make decent money if I do a gig? Sure, but it's just making up for what I've paid over the years in gas and time and so on. So there's a lot involved in being an actor.
Yeah, would you say that it's a good idea to join the union? And
well, it's not open to everybody. You have to qualify. There's several different ways, and
you have to have like a certain amount of hours on screen.
You have to, if you're an extra, if you're a background actor, you have to have 3 days on a set to qualify to join the union.
Oh, see, that's what
you have to book 3 days on a qualified union set, or if you speak a line, a scripted line, you automatically become eligible to join the union. Or, some people go through the back door of joining the union where they'll produce their own script and shoot it through the SAG guidelines and put themselves in it as an actor. So you kind of go in the back door. That's a very expensive way. And SAG frowns upon doing it that way.
Yeah.
And for all you actors out there that think that's the way to get in, that's not as easy as you might think. It's very expensive and it's very time consuming. And there's still an initiation fee to join the union. In Los Angeles, it could be up to $3,000 to join the union. And there's union dues twice a year.
So you have to pay it each year or just
twice
the
a year.
dues?
Yes, you pay your dues. So it's quite the investment to join SAG. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And would you say because you played in a band for a long time? So.
Oh yes. Music. Well, I did. I've played music for a lot of years. I play drums. I'm a drummer. I play some guitar. I sing. I've done musical theater. But first and foremost, I'm a drummer. I've played drums a lot of years. I actually played in a band when I was in California. I played in a band called Soylent Green, rock drummer. I played with those guys for a while in North Hollywood, and I still play. Do I consider myself a professional drummer?
Yeah.
Maybe not so much, but in the past 10 years, I don't play as much as I would like to. But I do it more now as a hobby. It's more of a stress relief than anything. I don't. I play in my basement in my house.
Yeah.
So
which is a good place for drums.
Yeah, right. So but I still enjoy it, and before COVID, I'd still go to like Guitar Center and go to drum clinics. Go see, drummers, present a drum clinic. I love live bands. Last August, I saw Iron Maiden, in concert in Indianapolis. I still appreciate going to rock concerts.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think that the COVID has screwed up. I just miss going to concerts.
Oh, I miss live entertainment.
Kids all like going.
And I miss live theater. I'm constantly online looking for local theater in Georgia, in the Atlanta area to see who's playing, what's playing. things are still shut down, and it breaks my heart because that's where I'm at. I'm going to the live theater, the comedy shows, the improv shows.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
The concerts,
the comedy shows too.
That's a big setback with COVID. So I'll be so glad when, and I'm sure everybody will, when some of the restrictions lift, so the entertainment
industry can
get back on its feet.
Concerts and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
you did stand up comedy for a while.
I did.
How did you get into that?
I worked with a fella years ago who said, "Hey Mark, you're kind of funny. You ever thought about doing stand up?"
This sounds like the same guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, different guy, different place. Yeah, I don't know. How do you do that? So I knew a guy named Jeff McDonald, and Jeff is a professional comedian, and Jeff has my utmost respect because he quit his day job about 15 years ago to be a professional stand-up comedian and make a living at it, and was a huge risk. And he's about my age, and he's done very well with it. And Jeff has been an inspiration to me, and Jeff has from time to time offered for me to be his opening act, and I thought, gosh, I'm not on that level. I'm just... My take at stand-up comedy, and I don't know if comedians are supposed to let it out of the bag, but as an actor, I memorize script. I memorize place and purpose and definition. So in comedy, it's all about timing. And I just tell stories.
Yeah.
Just tell stories.
That's kind of how I am.
I don't try to be funny, because I don't see myself as a funny guy. But for whatever reason, people see me as a funny guy, funny facial expressions, and it just works for me.
Yeah. Stand-up comedy.
So, Steve, I understand you've done stand-up comedy. Tell me about that. I'm interested in your experience of stand-up comedy.
I started doing it. I had always kind of wrote a lot of stuff down, and I was trying to figure out how to do it, and I wasn't never really thinking about ever doing it. I just liked writing jokes down, and I like making people laugh when we're out in crowded situations. So I would write jokes down, and then my buddy turned 50, and he asked me if I would do like a 10-minute routine at his birthday party.
10 minutes is an eternity on stage.
Well, it didn't seem that long at the time, but yeah, it was pretty long. And so I did it there, and so I would say there was maybe 30% people that were speaking English there, and the ones that were English speaking were pretty much laughing.
So where did you get your material?
I just do the same kind of thing. It's just like funny stories that happen to me that I find humorous. It just happens, I think, other people find. And I'm pretty easy about laughing at my own self anyways.
That's one thing that's cool. I think you and I have a lot in common. Starting with cars, of course.
Yeah.
We share a great passion for cars. But, I've done... no claim to fame by any stretch.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of fun along the way, and I've made some money at it, a little bit. And but if I had to choose a genre, I lean either towards comedy or dark drama.
Yeah.
Because I'm either one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for me is to be the guy somewhere in the middle, the guy next door. I've got a particular look.
Yeah.
And it's either I can be funny looking or I can be very serious and very evil looking. And I learned that early on. Is it stereotypical? Sure, why not? Go with whatever works.
Yeah.
Whatever pays the bills and whatever books the job. So.
Well, I think it's also that way to kind of express that artistic side of yourself, too. I mean, whether it's you write comedy or you play music or, you fix cars up and sell them, it's kind of that escape to kind of do something else. And I always kind of find it odd when you find people that just completely don't understand that at all. They're not like musically.
Well, the thing is, I'm not a sports guy. Now, I appreciate sports. And yes, I've been to professional, sporting events, outings, and, living in Indianapolis, I went to some Colts games, and living in LA, I went to a Clippers game and a Lakers game. I've done some, I've been to, and I appreciate sports, but I'm not a sports guy. I'm the guy that you find, sitting dead center in an audience in a dinner theater.
Yeah.
Or, the guy, sitting at a coffee shop watching someone play acoustic guitar sitting on a stool.
Yeah.
Some local talent. I'm that guy. I'm the audience in that crowd.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I have a vintage soul. I always tell people, I got this vintage soul. I like old music. I like old cars. I do. I love old cars. And,
How did you get started with old cars? Because
my whole entire life. I
always like classic cars.
I always like classic cars. When I was a kid, I had the Matchbox cars. And the funny thing is, I'm in my 50s. I still have those Matchbox cars. To be clear, I still don't play with them.
Yeah.
But I still have them. I still got those cars, man. As a kid, my mom always joked. She said, when I was born, I came out kicking.
Yeah.
She said I was either kicking the bass drum or I was pushing the gas pedal, one or the other. So I was either music or it was cars. It was one or the other always, And I was a young teenager. I was we were playing in cars, and when I finally got a car, I'm cruising around.
What was your first car?
First car was a 1966 Chevy Corvair.
Okay.
POS.
Yeah.
Piece of absolutely. But 16 years old, I thought it was cool.
It probably was cool then.
My birthday present for my 16th birthday was my driver's license. My grandmother at the time helped me get this car, and God, I thought it was cool as can be. And it ran about 4 days out of the week.
Yeah.
There are other days you're working on it. So, but
good old 60s cars, especially
good old
those
60s
Corvairs.
cars. Yeah.
What was the first album that you ever bought?
AC/DC, Back in Black.
Okay. That's a good choice.
1980.
Yeah.
But granted, the Bon Scott days were better days in AC/DC than Brian Johnson. But 1980, the Back in Black album was kind of life changing for me. I was the kid in the 70s. I was a 70s baby. Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. That's what I grew up with because I'm the youngest of three boys.
Okay.
So my two older brothers were listening to those bands, but my first album, my personal first album, was Back in Black. And Hell's Bells. My mom would question that every time. What is that song about? What is that song about? So,
I can remember the first time I heard that album, my buddy John Bridges, we were going to a high school football game, and I've never heard that album. My dad really wasn't an AC/DC fan, and I think most of my 60s and 70s music comes from, growing up with the music that he played. And we played that album and that song Back in Black, and I'd never heard that before. And that was an amazing song. It had a pretty good stereo system in this truck that he had, and I remember we would drink Southern Comfort and go to the football game and listen to that album on the way up there.
I listened to rock music, music in cars. Where I grew up, there's a nearby town called Princeton, and we would cruise a street called Mercer Street. We'd make 40 trips up and down the street. A lot of people did. I'm talking 100 cars.
Yeah.
Up back and forth. Growing up in the 80s, I graduated in the mid 80s, late 80s. I was Motley Crue, Whitesnake, the hair band stuff. So I'm cruising in my car and I'm listening to this music, turned wide open with my Radio Shack speakers. It was terrible. It sounded horrible. A kid with not much money. But always, music, cars. Yeah. Music, cars. So, and today I'm still...
And cruising. We used to do a lot of cruising.
What the heck happened to cruising, man? Know. I love cruising.
That was my favorite part of all
I'll be honest with you. If I knew where to cruise today,
I'd probably go.
I'd go do it.
I would go.
I'd be the old guy, cruising.
Yeah.
So.
But doing a burnout somewhere.
Absolutely. And that was just
or good. Running over a curb.
It was good times. It was good times back in the day. And I think that's kind of a lost. It gets lost today.
Yeah.
Kids today, they don't do that because there's nowhere to do that. I mean,
well, that and the police they crack down so much now compared. I mean, I'm sure you got away with a lot more stuff than I could have got away with, and it
probably
just progressively gets worse.
Been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
But I was a child of the 80s. I graduated, like I said, graduated high school in 1987. And if you think about the music and the times, big hair, I was the leader of a mullet kingdom.
I don't know if y'all say
I had a big mullet, I bleached my hair blonde. I've got pictures. Don't ask. I've got pictures.
Oh, we have to put some of those on.
Yeah, it was terrible. Talk about a career, ruining a career. No. But, yeah, I was a child of the 80s, and, it was good times. And, and not so much that I was a fan of the 80s music, because I'm more of a 60s and 70s music guy.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But I was a hair band guy.
80s to me was just such an interesting time, or at least for my era, because I kind of grew up in the 80s, like as a young guy, and that's when MTV came out.
Right, I remember when MTV came out.
MTV revolutionized music
Absolutely.
in a way, and I was saying this the other day with my kids that I'm sure. In fact, I'm positive. There's a lot of songs that that are not that great, but I like because of the music video.
And the video
has
was awesome.
Some hot chick in it, or
exactly.
Something. And later on, in retrospect, I'm like, the song really is not that good.
It's like I remember there's a video of Billy Idol. Not that Billy Idol was this great musician, but it was.
Yeah,
dude, the video just made him cool. Bigger than big. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy's cool. The videos. That's back when MTV was cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I was thinking too, like back then, that's when I first saw it come out. I was in California, and I was just a kid, and again, it was such a new thing. People were still confused, like, I'm going to pay to watch TV? What? I don't understand that. But that's when cable first came out, and
Absolutely.
I can't remember how many channels there were, but there was maybe 12 or 13. channels.
We didn't get cable till it was being mainstream. I think we got cable when I was about 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
It changed my life.
Yeah. It was the Zenith with the knob.
Oh, yeah. We had the big console, wood grain TV that you actually had to get up, go over, turn a dial to change it. Oh, yes. But then came the satellite dish. I remember my parents had this big 10-foot mesh satellite dish. You thought we were
it had
NASA.
some big thing, and you turn it, and it's moving.
Oh, my gosh. And the thing was zzz in the yard. And then, we could pick up other channels at that point. It's wow, yeah, it's revolutionary. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, that was top of the line for then, or, just definitely changed the way that
Absolutely.
music, and again, something that's totally lost. I mean, you don't watch videos anywhere. Well, of course, YouTube is taking over the music video.
I think YouTube is the new MTV.
Yeah.
And YouTube is such an interesting thing. It's a platform where people artists such as ourselves, artists who can create material and put it up for people to view and to appreciate. And I've watched quite a few things on YouTube, and a lot of unknowns that I find a lot of entertainment, a lot of artistic value. By just scanning YouTube. And I'm not a huge YouTuber, but because now in the age of Netflix and Prime and Hulu and all the streaming platforms, there's so much stuff now at our fingertips.
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow! How many networks do you think there are out there? Thousands.
Yeah. Well, the biggest problem I have now watching TV is you spend 90% of the time on the menu channel.
I do.
For something to watch.
I do.
And the same thing with Netflix. That's the problem and I think it's probably because I'm old, but also it just doesn't seem to be a lot of good stuff. I watch YouTube more than I will probably Netflix or.
I've got a couple shows that I'm watching on Prime.
And then they switch between them all
it's
the time.
Hard. I find it hard, personally. I find it hard for me to get invested in a show if the first one or two episodes
doesn't
hook me, then I'm done.
Yeah.
And, there's been multiple shows that I've started, and I'll watch 3, 4, 5 episodes in, and then my interest just wanes, and I'm done.
Yeah.
On to the next one,
Yeah, I kind of have the same problem.
I don't finish what I start. So.
Oh, I think the YouTube is definitely for the less attention span, or a letter time. If you're in the bathroom, you're like, I can watch a 10-minute video.
Sure.
But I think like YouTube captured me too, basically just by do-it-yourself stuff.
Right.
I mean, I think that's kind of where it really kind of took off, and then I was amazed that you can find anything on it.
I've had a YouTube channel, and I've never really focused on it. And at some point, maybe that I will put material on there. And I see people, young young adults,
Yeah.
teenagers, kids that have thousands of followers.
Oh, yeah,
I'm like,
it's insane. My son will watch somebody opening packages, and they got like millions of views. The
How?
guy's ordering things and then open them up in front of the camera. I'm going, and I'm doing all this and shit.
But you're familiar with it because you've watched the same people open
Yeah.
those packages, and that's part of the viewership.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Or playing video games, too. I mean, that's a
and
huge
see, the
one.
thing is, too, I grew up, in the age of, the early video games.
Yeah.
The
Me too.
The Atari. Yes, I remember the
Yeah.
Atari when I was a kid.
Pitfall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All these games. And, I never was a big gamer. It's funny. You would think, some of my interests now as far as an actor and the things that I'm interested in, I must have a gamer background. I don't.
Yeah.
Horror movies and things. I've made a ton of horror movies in my life, and they're fun to do, but that's not my favorite genre of movies to watch. Yeah. It's not. And I've done a bunch of them, and I love them, making them.
Yeah.
I love making the horror
That's
movies.
true. I mean, a lot of people ask me, like, how, where do you find the motivation to do it? It's just kind of fun to... Because, I mean, I really started out, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing everything myself, but it's kind of fun to figure out how to do it. It's also kind of a little artistic side of you and a hobby,
See, that's the thing. It's funny you mentioned that because the acting thing, first and foremost, above it being a profession or being in a union, it's my creative outlet.
Yeah.
It's my artistic outlet. I wish and I regret that I didn't discover it early on as a kid, and done and maybe gone some different routes with it. But I'm not. I don't regret that for the fact that I did discover it. I was in my mid-20s, but and from my mid-20s till now, I'm in my 50s. I've been head over heels involved in it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've met a lot of interesting people along the way, and it's been an interesting journey. And I feel, and I still feel young at heart.
Yeah.
I still feel like the best is yet to come.
Yeah. I still feel like 28 inside, but
Well, I feel
outside,
that way, but I sure don't
look
look.
a little older, like 29.
Right. Well, I got a few years on you, so yeah. But I feel the best is yet to come.
Yeah. And do you still like? Would you go play in a band or?
Sure would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought so.
Absolutely. Now here's the thing. Like I said, my dad was a gospel drummer, and and I'm not above from playing gospel drums to playing. Country's a thin line with me.
Yeah.
It has to be like classic country. I don't like the hip country. Rock, and I'm not a hip hop guy. I'm not a manufactured music guy. I'm just not. I respect it. I respect the lyrics. I respect, the poetry that's involved in rap. I respect. That's just not my thing.
Yeah, I think also there's also like another artistic person in there, which is also the guy that's mastering or he's mixing up all the music.
Absolutely,
too,
absolutely. It's
just as important as the
But me, I'm more of bring an instrument to life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like an acoustic set.
Yeah.
I listen to a station on my Sirius satellite. It's called Coffee House, I think it is, Channel 14. And I listen to that quite a bit because it's like a raw version of a song where, let's say, The Police. There'll be an acoustic set of The Police playing an old classic of theirs. And I dig that.
Yeah.
I like the raw versions of songs. Yeah. When you bring an instrument to life, that I appreciate. So, and to hear, give you an example, Heart playing "Stairway to Heaven."
Yeah, I heard them on Howard Stern. I think the other night. I was like, whoa,
blown away.
Yeah,
blown away.
I heard Miley Cyrus sing too. What was it? She sang a Blondie song. Heart of Glass.
Yeah, Heart of Glass.
Oh my
I saw
God!
It.
I was like,
it's incredible.
Whoa, yeah,
she's such an incredible talent.
She has a nice, very strange. Strange is a terrible word, but very different voice. Has a very unique.
Very raspy. But she started. She came from a musical family, and she started at a very early age. if you could get past her being bizarre and her need for attention, there's a lot of talent.
Well, I saw her on a podcast a couple times, and she seemed a lot more normal than I had made her out to be too.
Sure.
So, of course, I think she was sober too, so that probably had a lot to do with it. But I think that for music, to me too, is a music. There's nothing more than music that can touch your soul. To me,
that's true.
And my older kids are amazing musicians, and they've been playing for 15 to almost 20 years. And but when you're in that field, it's not limited. I do not consider myself a musician by any means.
Right.
I like to play different instruments. I would not say that I'm good at it, but it's something fun to do. But when artists are playing together, you have, say, 3-4 people playing together, and when that shit comes together, you can feel the energy in the room, which is a very strange thing, and you don't have to be playing an instrument to witness it. And so once you feel that kind of energy, it's kind of intoxicating in a way.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because I made a movie years ago, back in the late 90s. It's called The Raging Bells. I've given you.
Oh yeah, we have a copy.
Yeah, I've slipped you a copy of that. This movie took about 18 months to make.
Wow.
And I wrote this movie. I wrote the entire script. And
this movie right here.
This movie right here started a total.
Order it now at. I don't know.
There's a Facebook page for it, and yes, there is a
we are selling this
that.
one copy for one.
When I wrote that movie, it's funny because there was a whole mix of artistic value that went into that. I'm a fan of poetry.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the performing arts, and I'm a musician. So when I wrote this movie, I had Edgar Allan Poe, The Bells. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe, and that's my favorite of Edgar Allan Poe is The Bells. So the name of the movie, The Raging Bells.
Yeah.
When I wrote this movie, start over.
Take a quick break.
When I wrote this movie, I had Edgar Allan Poe in mind, but also had a musical theme. When I would write a scene, I would think, okay, bells. I would research bells. Metallica, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Bells. I would just think bells, and music.
Tubular bells.
Diary of a Madman, Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads. There's lyrics in Diary of a Madman that very much influenced me on writing the script for The Raging Bells. And not that you will hear those lyrics in this song, or in this movie, but when you watch this movie and you keep that stuff in mind, you're going to think, he's a madman.
Yeah.
There's a whole diary of this madman in this movie, and if you're familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, The Bells, you understand where this guy's madness is coming from. There was a lot of layers that I did in this movie to write this script. Now, granted, the movie's kind of cheesy. It was shot on a shoestring budget. Yeah. I had no money shooting this movie.
Well, 18 months of camera work.
But I was surrounded by very talented people that were very eager to make a movie, a feature film. This movie's 96 minutes long. I've got about 45 actors in this movie.
Oh, wow.
Nobody got paid, including myself. Very low-budget movie. We did it for fun.
And where was this filmed at?
This was filmed, funny that you ask. The majority of the movie was filmed in Tampa Bay, Florida. There's a scene that was shot in Miami. There's a scene that's shot in New York City at Times Square and in the subway system in New York City. But most of it was shot in Tampa Bay and the surrounding area throughout. So if you're a Florida fan, you like Florida, if you like the beach and things, you'll recognize some places that where this movie was shot. Okay. Coconut Grove, Miami Beach, South Beach, a few places you'll recognize in this movie. So took me a year and a half to shoot this movie. Gruesome, hard. Let's talk about continuity and how people change their looks in 18 months, or how things change in general. True story. If you remember a phone company called GTE.
Oh, yeah.
We shot a scene at a phone booth, and it says GTE on the side of the phone booth. Well, we had to go back and do a pickup shot. And we had to go back to the same location. A year later, it changed to Bell South. Wait a minute, it no longer says GTE. So we had to, just a small example. There's so many things you got to work around in continuity. We just roll with it.
Yeah.
And if
would people really like? See, I would not pick up on that. Maybe now more I pick up on stuff just because I've been doing some editing. Yeah.
Right.
But a lot of the times people don't.
Well, me, I'm terrible to watch a movie with because I pick up. Now, me, I'm terrible to watch a movie with because I pick up on everything because, just from years of being not only in front of the camera but behind the camera, because I've directed, I've produced, I've done stand-in.
What do you like doing more?
I like the acting part. I like the process of acting. Initially reading a script, and when I read a script, I read it with an open mind. I don't read it with my character in mind. Yeah. I don't want to make choices right out of the gate. I want to read the story. I want to see what the relationship is with the characters in the story. I want to see there's a beginning, there's a rising force, and there's a climax, and then there's an end. I want to see what happens in there. Now, if you're like Quentin Tarantino, where your climax is in the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And then he has his rising force, and then it kind of goes back to the beginning of the movie at the end. But I like the process of reading a story. I recently did a movie a couple years ago with, I played Dylan McDermott's brother. And the movie's still playing on I think it's on Prime, called The Clove Hitch Killer. I play his brother. I remember the initial audition. I remember reading, booking the role, reading the script, which I was like, oh, I can't figure this out. To shooting my bit, and then seeing it on the big screen. And it did not resonate with me on the big screen like it did when I read the script. It resonated differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
I saw a different story on the screen than my imagination read it. If that makes sense.
Makes sense.
I'm sure everybody deals with that. Granted, what I saw on the screen was probably much more fantastic than what I had imagined.
Yeah.
Because, you see it all put together.
Yeah. But it's strange to you when you see it, and then you go, oh, okay, that's not how.
Very much.
Yeah.
But, I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the acting. Now, I enjoy stunt work just as much. But you get older, you get brittle. Yeah. And I don't want to hurt myself. And I've got a buddy, Mark Terry, that lives in Los Angeles, and he's a working stuntman. And he tells me stories, and luckily he's never been hurt. But I've got another friend, Cord Newman, has been a stuntman for 30 years, and he has been hurt, and he's done a lot of things. And I enjoy the stunt work too. But first and foremost, as an actor, I love the process.
Yeah.
I love the raw material and creating something, and it's like a musician takes a song and take a bar of notes and you bring it to life. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
It's the same creativity, the same process.
Yeah, you're just doing it for a visual.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the same process.
Yeah. It's always amazing to me, too, that, like you can see actors that kind of play the same role. They have like a certain character that they play, and they can't really escape from that. And then you have other actors that can play anything, good, bad,
funny, it's funny
dark.
You say that because we'll use Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorites. But he's very he plays a very specific role. He plays a very specific character in pretty much everything he plays. But the thing about Christopher Walken, he does it well.
Yeah. Wasn't he in not the game? What was the name of the movie with Matthew Broderick in it? War Games. Isn't that Christopher?
I think.
Yeah.
War Games.
Christopher Maybe that's Christopher Walken. I have the wrong guy, I think. But
what he does it well. And even he's been a guest on Saturday Night Live multiple times, little guest spots. And even what he does on Saturday Night Live is classic Christopher Walken. And, he's very stereotypical, but what he does it well. But then you take the Tom Hanks of the world, who can play whatever.
Yeah.
And do it well.
That's a good
example. Yeah. he does it well. You
Yeah.
know,
Forrest Gump too.
To Castaway.
Castaway too. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Amazing.
amazing
Yeah,
actor.
absolutely.
Well, Clint Eastwood too. I mean,
I got to meet Clint Eastwood one time. I worked as just a background guy on a movie called Flags of Our Fathers, and Clint Eastwood directs the movie. And we shot this at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. And I got to work on that set for a couple of days, and I got to meet Clint Eastwood on a lunch break in the middle of the night one night, and he was a very sweet, nice person.
yeah.
And, you know, I'm not starstruck by celebrity at all. But I have to admit I was starstruck by Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Because, you know...
Yeah, he's
you know,
like the man. When
I just met Josie Wells. I mean, holy cow! Really, it's Dirty Harry. You know, and I was very humbled by his, you know, by just who he is. He was very quiet and hi. Thank you for being on my set. You know, he thanks everybody.
Yeah,
He was very
kind.
very kind, and,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that, and that left a very lasting impression with me.
Yeah. Who's
So-
the biggest asshole you ever met?
Oh, David Caruso on the set of CSI Miami.
Yeah, that doesn't
Sorry,
sound
David.
so surprising.
Yeah, well, he's just not a very, he's not very approachable. I mean, but you know, he may be different when you're somewhere else. When you're on
Maybe
set,
his wife just left him. Who knows?
He's all business. He's all business.
Oh, really?
So he's all business. And
Who was who would you say the funniest person you ever met that was like truly funny?
I never worked with this actor, but I was at a premiere. Adam Sandler, and I want to tell you this little story about Adam Sandler. Sorry, Adam. Went to the premiere of a movie called Click in Brentwood, and it's funny because I'm standing, you know, with the paparazzi. I was able to get in as a guest and at this premiere one evening, and Adam Sandler and I, you know, David Hasselhoff and Henry Winkler, and Christopher Walken, and Kevin James and Terry Crews, and here comes Adam Sandler walking the red carpet, and he's doing his thing. He's doing his thing. It's funny. He goes into the theater. He goes through the theater, out the back door, so he could walk the red carpet a second time because he eats up the crowd. It was the funniest thing. He's like, I want this moment to last forever. So
It's like, shit, I'm going to do it again.
I'm going to do it again. But you know, it's his movie. Why not?
Yeah, why? If it's your movie, man, I'm going to do a second round.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun just to watch him being funny, you know, and appreciating it like I would. You know, these are all human beings. Like, you know,
Yeah.
they're all people just like we are. They go home to families
Oh,
every
yeah.
night. They live like we do. It's just they have a different job.
My favorite comedian that hangs around Adam Sandler is Nick Schwartzen. He's like in every Adam Sandler movie.
Well, they got
without
their
a huge part.
They've
but-
got their own little clique of
Yeah.
people. You know, Rob Schneider. You know,
Yeah, yeah, it's the
They've
same
got their
thing.
own David Spade. They got their own little clique of people
Yeah.
that's in these movies.
And
so.
even at some point, you're like, God, can't he use some new actors? But now it's been so long.
expect it.
Yeah, you're expected, and you're like, okay, where
You
is Rob
expect it.
Schneider going to be in this
Right.
movie?
Where's David Spade? Which one's he going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, you expect it.
David Spade seems very cool. I don't know what he's like in real life, but he seems.
I would
very
hope he's as cool as he
amusing.
seems. Yeah, because I like his work. I
grew up
love his
watching
stand
all
up.
kinds of shows with him. There was some show where he was like the assistant or something. It was like an office setting. And
Yeah,
I can't remember the name.
That was a hit. It was like on
It was.
NBC or.
Me and the wife used to watch that one all the time back in the day.
Well, I hope he's as approachable as he seems to be in on his shows. Because I watched a stand up of his. I think it's on HBO. He's genius.
Oh, he is.
His
Yeah,
stand up
he is.
comedy
He's
is
funny,
genius. He's
too.
funny.
Yeah. I hear that the one that I'm waiting for is I'd really like to see Eddie Murphy come. He was before the COVID hit. He
Right.
was going back up, and
Did you see his Saturday Night Live thing?
that was brilliant.
My gosh,
That
I
was
mean,
brilliant.
Yeah, he hasn't lost it. So.
No, he's just done so much other stuff. And I think a lot of people, well, especially back then, so many comedians were just doing comedy to find an acting job. You
Right.
know what I mean? Or a sitcom or whatever it was. And so many people quit doing stand-up to do something. They were great comics.
Sure.
I mean, you know, well, I think Roseanne Barr is definitely up there
Right.
in one of those categories. She was brilliant as a stand-up.
Well, look at Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
I watched a show of hers, and it's been a while ago, an HBO special. She was brilliant.
Yeah.
And not that she does any comedy now. She's got a couple shows on TV, but her stand-up was. I could understand. I understand totally how she got where she's at. She raised the bar.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of up-and-coming women comics that are pretty good. Whereas I didn't find it so much humorous when I was maybe younger, or maybe the caliber of comics weren't up to my standards. That sounds terrible, but But now there's so many coming up, and I think of course social media has put those out there too.
Well, I think there's so many unknowns out there now that people have gotten discovered. YouTube, as we mentioned before, has been a huge platform, and just like you say, there's so many social media platforms. With the Facebooks of the world, the Twitters, the Instagrams, there's so many different things, and so many ways to get your material out there. And same for musicians, Spotify and all these different platforms that you can put your music out there that we didn't have growing up. You had to do it the old-fashioned way and try to get in front of somebody to be seen back in my day. But now it's still the same idea. There's just a lot more ways to do that.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a different world, but I mean, it's fun to do stuff like that. And there's so many different ways. And I think this is probably one of the funnest things I do. I love screwing around with the cars and doing all the other stuff. But to me, this is really fun, just to sit down and
absolutely
and
this is
find
fun.
Interesting people to.
Thanks for having me on your show, Steve. I appreciate it, man.
Anytime.
Yeah,
Next time we'll have to check out the truck maybe a little.
Yeah. We'll do this. I'll pull the old truck out of the garage and show you Old Blue. Oh yeah.
Maybe we'll take it for a spin.
Yeah. Of course. Now,
all right.
We're not going to win any races in the old truck.
That's okay.
I'm just going to warn you.
We're just looking to pick up loose women. No, I'm just kidding. Marcus. Well, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, man.
Time.
This has been awesome.
It's been great. All right. We'll see you guys. Peace.